Alex Demczak, it's so good to have you on the Christian Coach podcast. Really big fan of the work that you've done, and we're blessed and honored to have you join us. And we start every episode with the power question. We like to just jump right into things, and so just want to throw it to you. What does it mean to you to be a Christian coach?
Chad, well, thanks for having me. I love AIA and I love being around coaches. And so this is kind of the perfect podcast for both of those things. And so, man, I heard a quote years ago from Billy Graham, and he kind of referenced this towards teachers, but I think it also directs directly to coaches. And what he said is a teacher or a coach will impact more people in 1 year than the average person will in a lifetime. And I don't know how you would ever quantify if that's true, like statistically speaking, but Billy Graham obviously was a great guy, and I trust that quote. And I think if there's any truth to that quote, it just speaks to the stewardship responsibility that a coach has. That a coach who, I was at a wedding last night, and there was a Division I SEC football coach there that I was getting to talk with, and just hearing about all the different things that he's doing and the way that in which he's doing it from a biblical worldview at the highest level. And he's doing things that are maybe countercultural, right? But he's having success, and he gets criticism and he gets all these things, but he understands, man, like I'm doing this for a purpose. And this was just last night. I was having this conversation at a wedding, literally. And but I think for all the coaches listening, there is not, in my opinion, a coach just has such a responsibility to steward their gifts well, because when they do that and they're able to be filled up and then pour out to these kids, like we just all know how transformative a coach can be, positively or negatively. And I think today with kids in college, for example, being able to transfer an NIL and all these different changes, man, it's changed the coaching landscape. Like I bet if we talked to coaches 50 years ago, they'd be like, what's NIL, so it's completely different. But it's also such a cool opportunity for coaches to make a difference in these kids' lives. And, I think both of us, obviously, as being athletes, like we have been shaped by the coaches that we've had, and if you go into a room, and I do this all the time when I speak, when I'm with college, high school coaches, I say, hey, raise your hand if you are a coach today, because a coach has made a positive impact on your life. And it's crazy, like how many people you look around and their hand is raised, and it just speaks volumes of the platform that a coach has, because they're with these athletes in some of the most transformative times, in the good and the bad. And it's like, man, you have such a great platform and responsibility. Don't waste it.
Yeah, that's really good. Huge opportunity for a coach, like you said, to speak life and the positive, or tear down into the negative. And Alex, I've heard you on other podcasts and heard some of your story, but I'm just curious if we could go back just for your upbringing, share as much or as little as you want, but just curious from your faith upbringing, sports background, just tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home and with my sister, and we were just very blessed with parents that just provided so much for us, and brought us up and sent us to Christian camps and Christian youth group and all these things. And to be honest, for a while, even going into college, I kind of struggled with my testimony, because we would be at a youth group and we'd be sharing, and someone would get up and share a really graphic, really hard thing that they overcame, and everyone's clap, and it was such an awesome testimony. And it's just like you're almost tearing up hearing this person share. And then I'm like, man, I don't have I don't have that. And someone really encouraged me a few years ago. They said, it was actually, what's cool about this, it was someone in AIA. Actually, it was an AIA director, Nathan Buxman. And so that's cool how this is all full circle. He was just encouraging me. He's like, look, there are people that look to your life and see the healthy, and again, obviously none of us are perfect, but the way in which your parents raised you and how that healthy dynamic and relationship that you still have today, like that is a testimony of Christ, in the way that they did that, and how rare it is to have a two parent home these days, and in the way that you're raised. And so that helped me. That was really encouraging. And yeah, I mean, even just Nathan Buxman, who works for AIA and does similar work to what you do. I mean, he was there with me at Mizzou, and was really helped shape my faith when I went through challenging times at Mizzou and had hardships. And like, he was just a constant guy that would show up in the dining hall, and probably a lot of people didn't know what his job title was at first because he wasn't a coach, right? But he would just be there, and almost every morning he would be having breakfast, and he would just have his Bible open, and it was just crazy to see how guys, myself included, would just walk over and be like, "What's he?" and just sit down, and he would just say, "Hey guys, let me tell you about the Sermon on the Mount or whatever," and he would just start, and it was such an encouragement because you're in this like college football environment, and but it's like, man, just to pause before your day starts and have this perspective from an AI guy in AIA. It was so awesome, and I still am connected with him to this day, and he's had a huge impact on my life. And so I would say, growing up in the way I was raised, went to a church camp called Kanakuk as a college counselor. I actually met my wife there and still have great friends there. That was super instrumental in my life as far as my faith journey. And actually went to UTC. I went to the camp in Colorado in the beautiful landscape of Fort Collins with all these athletes, and that was super transformative in my life. And here we are. And so I honestly, man, just want to say thanks for having me on, because I do love the mission of AIA and what you guys do.
Oh, that's awesome. It's been so encouraging. I've been with Athletes in Action here for about 6 months, and just hearing so many of these stories of kind of unsung heroes, people that you don't know about, just hanging out in cafeterias or in coffee shops, just being available to have an impact on a guy like you. And when these moments of crisis maybe happen, I'm curious, just a moment in your life. It sounded you were backup quarterback at Missouri, trying to make that starting spot, and then all of a sudden, bad news hits. Can you just tell us about that moment, and then just how did you respond? Like, what was the days and the weeks after to not just like go into the deep end and throw your life away?
Yeah, there's times I wanted to, probably, but yeah, I would, for me, football was my identity. That's what I did. Alex, the quarterback, Alex, the football player. And going into my junior season, where I thought things were going up into the right for me, the coaches had said positive things. I had a good spring ball, like things were trending upward. I sit and I go to this meeting you have every year. It's a walk-on meeting with your position coach, and I sit down, and usually there was one coach, but this time there was three, so that was different. And so I sit down, and one of the coaches is closing the door behind him, so I'm like, well, that's not a good start to the meeting. And I sit down, and he pretty much, he just shoots me straight. He says, "Alex, we have over scholarshiped at quarterback. We are bringing in someone to take your spot." And so for me, it hit me just like a million miles a second. And I couldn't believe it. And he said, you have two options. Option number one is you're cut, you're done. That's it. Business transaction, thank you, but no thank you. You're not good enough. And option number two is you can stay on as a volunteer assistant coach, no pay, doing all the small things. And so he's like, by the way, you have to decide right now. And so my mind's racing. I'm like, what do I do? Do I transfer? And in that moment, I just felt compelled to stay. And so I said, I'll stay on as this assistant coach, whatever that means. And that was on a Friday. And I remember just walking out of that meeting room and getting in my truck and parking. And I remember just crying and feeling so humiliated. Like, here I'm a kid from this small town, gets the chance, and like, this is how it ends. And I'm sitting there as a obviously as a Christian going, God, like, how, like, this is not how I scripted it. Like, in a million years, I would have never wanted this humiliation of like, man, now I have to tell people like, yeah, I'm not on the team anymore. I'm cut. Like, I wasn't good enough. And now I have to show up at practice every day and do these small things and make the person who took my spot look better, look good. And that was my role now in practice. And so, man, that was so humiliating. And I remember that first practice, walking into the facility thinking like, God, like, I don't know what you have for me, but maybe this coaching thing, this is where you have me, right? I'm thinking I'm going to have this big coaching role. And so I walk in, and one of the assistant coaches, he hands me this flag. He literally hands me this yellow flag. And he says, "Alex, I want to show you what your job title is going to be." And I'm like, all right. And he takes this flag and he says, "We need to work on our discipline in practice. And so when someone jumps off sides, you're going to take this flag and you're going to throw it on the ground." And I'm like, okay, I think that I can handle that. And he literally demonstrated how to do it twice, and I was like, okay, that was the worst part. He showed me how to throw this flag twice, and I'm like, I think I can handle that. And I'm like, do I do this at the beginning of practice, the end? Like, which part of practice do you want me to do this? And he said, we need you to do this role for the entire season. And, what I thought was going to be a promising junior year, long story short, was me throwing the darn flag. It was me making coffee for the coaches. It was doing the practice plan, printing them off, doing all these small details that like I felt like no one in the world saw. Like no one even noticed. All my friends are living out their dreams, but here I am doing these small menial tasks. But I'll say this, Chad, like during that year, there were relationships with guys on the team that I would have never connected with because I was just too busy. I was so consumed with myself. I mean, I would have guys that I didn't even know where people of faith would come up to me and say, man, like, I've been praying for you. Like, thanks for sticking with it. Like, this has been a huge encouragement to me. And I'm like, those were the types of things that kept me going. I think about my AIA director at Mizzou, Nathan Buxman, was right there able to be like, look, God has not put you here for just your football ability. God has put you and placed you here for his glory. And so he doesn't care if you're the starting quarterback or if you're literally the flag thrower, like what you're doing right now. And so that was such an encouragement. And it kind of gave me this new approach and seriousness to making an impact on other people. And so, I continued to work out with the team that year. I stayed with it. I tried to do all the little things right. I talked to the coaches, what can I do to get back on the team? And then my senior year, I did get back as a quarterback on the team. We went to the Citrus Bowl. It was an awesome year. It was great. It was a great ending to my career. But the story that I want to convey to any coach listening is that when I look at all of my years as a player, but then I look at that one year, my junior season, where I was throwing the darn flag, I had no title. I had no response. I felt like I had no meaningful responsibility. I would argue that I actually made a bigger impact that year than I did all my other years as a player. And I think that what I had to learn for myself is that leadership requires no title. And I had to take ownership for my actions, my thoughts, my beliefs, the way that I was treating other people. And I think that I don't know, Chad, if we'd be on this call right now if it wasn't for that moment in my life, because it was so humiliating to be cut, to have all my identity, my weight in that thing. And as we know, it's fleeting, right? It doesn't last forever. And in that moment I was cut, and it really caused me to second guess a lot of things, to second guess my faith and be like, God, where are you in this? But I can tell you, we wouldn't be on this call if it wasn't for that moment, because now as I travel the country and speak with athletes, and if I talk to someone who maybe tore their ACL and is out for the season, I have a different compassion for that person, and I'm able to connect with that person, resonate. Maybe I would have never been able to have that if it wasn't for this happening in my life. And so I think God just uses those trials, those areas of your life where you're just like, God, like I can't be used in this situation. Like, man, what's going on here? But I just, looking back, God was just refining my character and just showing me how I didn't need football, and God didn't need me for football to bring him glory. But man, like there's such an opportunity in those moments to either kind of run from God and say, I'm mad at you, I don't agree with what you're doing, or we can become closer to him and say, God, like, how can you use me? I want to be available. And again, I didn't do it perfectly, but I just want to encourage people out there, when maybe you're in a coaching role right now that you're just like, man, I do not know why I'm here. Man, just give it to God and say, God, I want to have my hands open and be open to your call on my life.
Yeah, man, that must have been really hard for you to go through there, your junior season, and just the phrase like serving in the shadows. And nobody sees it, but I do think that's when we are refined, and so great that you can relate to so many people, because tragedy hits, hardships hit, and at some point careers come to the end. But just in that thought of just serving in the shadows, I had a LinkedIn message from you. I was the assistant athletic director at a small Christian school, and I know you're doing LinkedIn for Jon Gordon, and as the power of positive leadership, he was trying to get some virtual stuff going, I think. And I'm just curious, just in the season after you graduate Missouri, from 22 to 29, when you published the second book, what were some of the things that you were doing that prepared you for that moment to get to pen a book with the great Jon Gordon at 29?
Yeah, so Jon Gordon for the last 6 years has been a mentor of mine, and really what it was is he showed up and he spoke at Mizzou, and we connected there, and really just seeing him speak. I took a public speaking class my senior year, and I noticed in the class of like 28 kids, like 26 of them like hated it and were like, I do not want to do this. But like two of us, we were like the nerds in the class. We really enjoyed it. And so that was something that I was like, man, I really enjoy doing this type of thing. And then when I saw Jon Gordon doing it with athletic departments, all this stuff, I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I want to do that. And so literally I just reached out to him and said, hey, I'm willing to work for you for free, whatever it looks like. I just want to be around you. I just want to learn from you, from what you're doing. And so that's what I did. And so yeah, like you said, I, managed his LinkedIn account, helped him with sales, all these other things, and just tried to add value. And he's obviously gets a ton of opportunities to go all over. And so then it turned into, hey, Alex, I have these speaking requests. I can't speak at all of these. Why don't you speak at these ones while I'm speaking over here? And so that's how it started. And man, I'm just been tried to be like a sponge around him, and just tried to learn as much as I can. And he's just done such an amazing job of stewarding his gifts and abilities. And so then when we started talking about books and we started talking about our newest book, The Sale, it just made sense, because one of the cool things is for the last 6 years, I've seen him kind of run his business and do things in his speaking career with integrity. And hopefully too, he's seen that in me. Like I've worked for his company and done things to add value. And we kind of had this character and trust that we built. And so it was only fitting that our new book, The Sale, the whole message is about integrity. And so, even though we're different ages, we're in different parts of our careers, I'm just getting started. He's had years of success. I think it really speaks to the trust, even with each other and being co-authors, and then bringing that message out into the world. Because when I think about, an area of the world that at times can lack integrity and trust, it's athletics. We think about, you just could Google right now on ESPN, you could Google, you could look at the headline, and I guarantee you there would be some news article or some athlete or some coach who lacked integrity in a major way. And now because of that, there's just such this ripple effect on the organization. And so, gosh, there is such an opportunity to make an impact in athletics, but also if you're not careful, man, there's these lures and there's these opportunities to go down the wrong path. And we all see it in a lot of ways blow up for people on a national stage. And so, have loved learning from Jon, and in a lot of ways just getting started in my career in speaking. But it was 8 months ago when I quit my full-time day job, which was comfortable, and went all in as a speaker and a writer. And it's been cool to see how God opens up doors when you're kind of obedient to the calling he has.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I did want to get into the book. I read it. I read it digitally, which I don't like to read on digital format. And I read it in about 5 days. Just one of those type of books. Just want to keep flipping and want to figure out the end. And there's a problem within it that you're just like, all right, what's he gonna do? But don't want to give it away. The guys listening in and gals are gonna have to just go pick it up. But you could have written a book about anything. Why was it integrity that just kind of gripped your heart and said, I'm just gonna write a book on this?
Yeah, well, thanks for reading it. And it's a great question, because in some ways it could be maybe easier to write about being positive or doing some of these other things, right? Because those may become a little easier. But I just think integrity is in a lot of ways countercultural. We're almost surprised when we see like really courageous acts of integrity. Like you see a video online where someone drops like $100 bill and someone picks it up and gives it, and everyone's like, wow, good job. And it's almost like rare these days to like see those opportunities. And I think, our whole culture with social media and with everything the world tells us, like there is just this infatuation with just having whatever you want right now. And I think in a lot of ways, like the whole art of delayed gratification has kind of been lost. And in a lot of ways, when we can look on social media, we can look and say, man, I want that. And not only do I want it, but I need to have it because they have it, my friends have it. And then where we get into a lot of trouble is we say, I deserve that thing, right? I deserve it. And we have this entitlement mentality. But what I've had to learn is that every moment I spend looking at other people's giftings or blessings, or man, why can't I be an NFL quarterback, or why couldn't I be the starting quarterback? I have to remember that comparison is the thief of joy. And so every moment that I spend thinking about those things, I'm taking away from my own God-given abilities and talents that God has, given me to steward. And I think that's true for all of us. And so the book, I think the message, it says The Sale. It's not really just a book about sales, as you know. It's a book about a guy named Matt, and the main character, Matt, is having a ton of success at work, and he's doing some great things. But at home, things are in shambles. And his wife, Kendra, ultimately says, look, if you don't change, like, I'm done. I didn't sign up for this. We're getting a divorce. And, long story short, again, we're not going to give anything away for your listeners here. They have to go out and read it. But Matt has the chance to make a huge sale at work. He's in commission sales, and he has the chance to make a $7 million sale. Like, just imagine making $7 million, a lot of money. But the only problem is him and his team would have to lack integrity to make the sale go through. So he has the decision of, do I make the money or do I do the right thing? And like you said, we're going to keep everyone on the edge of their seats here, not telling them the ending, but it's just really cool to see through his mentor, Randy, in the book, the things that he learns, the ways that he is transformed in his own character, just through the different principles and things that we talk about in the book. And so, yeah, it's been really fun to share that message, whether it's corporate America. I was just speaking to a football team in college the other day. I think the principles, to answer your question in a roundabout way, the reason why we chose this message is because they apply to every team in America. They apply to every organization in America, or any country for that matter. When you're on a team where there's high trust and you fully trust the people next to you, and that is an awesome place to be. And you love going to work. You love doing what you do, whether you're in ministry or a secular job, doesn't matter. That's all, really, as Christians, it's all ministry, right? No matter where God has placed you. And so when the opposite is true, and when you don't have the trust, you can't trust the person next to you, man, it just sucks the life out of you. And so our message to people in corporate America or on a football field or coaches is, man, you can go out and have success and you can do amazing things with the gifts that God has blessed you with. But man, you also have the opportunity to do things the wrong way. And so our message to people is, man, go be wildly successful, but don't lose your soul in the process. Don't compromise your morals and give yourself away at the cost of winning, and we see examples all the time, like Tony Dungy, Dabo Sweeney, Mark Richt. We could just go on and name some of these coaches who are doing things the right way, and God's blessing them, and they're winning games, and they're having awesome recruiting classes, but they're doing it in a way that honors God. And I think as a Christian coach, I mean, that should be the goal, is doing things God's way, and playing sports God's way, and because He created it all.
That's really good. And just even this weekend, there was another news headline of a young man that made some poor choices, and yeah, it's hard when we see those things. And when I was first starting out as a coach, I remember seeing a successful SEC football coach, rise to the top and get in trouble for integrity issues. And so just the John Maxwell quote, the true success is being the most loved and respected by those closest to you. It was a quote that I really wanted to live by. And just this other thought on as Christians, thinking about grace and no one's perfect. Even Paul, the author of 2/3 of the New Testament, right? It was just saying the things I want to do, I don't do. The things I do, I don't want to do. Just this tug of war within integrity. So I'm just curious for you, like, how do you try to live your life by your values and live with integrity according to who you want to be?
Yeah, I think for me, it starts with obviously having time with God individually first, right? I think the best leaders lead themselves first. They're inside out leaders. We always hear that. But I think before anything, it needs to be, I have to be filled with the Spirit. I have to be equipped. I have to be armed and ready to go before I go out into battle. And so for me, this morning before we were on this call, like, it was me having some quiet time. And again, like, there's no like legalistic thing about this, but it's just, man, just like if you work out at the gym, you get stronger, you grow in strength, you're working out that muscle, that discipline, the same way as our relationship with Christ. And so I think for me, it starts there. Another thing that's been huge is just accountability. Having, I have a friend named Nick, and at least once a week, we're just checking in. How are things going? We're working out together at the gym. We're getting coffee. Hey, how are you? What areas do you need help in? How's ministry going for you? All these things. We're in different lanes, so to speak, but we have the same mission. And so that's been huge, just having that accountability to where if I do need to confess things, if I do need to get things off my chest, man, there's a I shouldn't say safe space, but yeah, we're great friends and we have this trust built to where man, we just love each other and encourage each other. And so I would say that's been huge for me. And then also finding role models, finding people in my life who I um, look at and say, wow, like they are using their gifts for kingdom purposes and making such a difference with their platform. Like those are the type of people I want to, obviously, I want to be more like Jesus, but also just examples in my life of people that I can kind of look to and say, wow, that's so cool how they're using their gifts and learning from those ways rather than looking to the other people in the world maybe who are doing the opposite and envying what they have. And I think it's very clear in the Bible not to envy those people and for what they are doing. And so I think those three things for me is a great start. But then, man, it's a daily thing. You know, we talk about in the book. It's not a one-time decision you make and all right, I'm going to live with integrity. No, no, we all know that's not true. It's sometimes an hourly thing, sometimes a minutely. It's not even a word, but minutely thing. And it's but I think just being open. God, how can you use me? How can I? What are areas that I need to grow in? What are my blind spots? How what is sin that I need to confess, whatever that looks like in your own life. Not being so busy with your coaching schedule, recruiting, games, all this stuff that you're neglecting the people closest to you, like you said in the John Maxwell quote, with your family, your friends, but also that you're not neglecting the needed time you need with God to fill you up so you can do these things that he's given us the gifts and abilities anyway, right? And so for us to neglect the time with him, it's like, man, we're trying to do something on our own that he's given us. And I'm convicted of that all the time. And I just need to say, you know what, Alex, slow down, say no to this other thing I'm trying to chase over here, put it on the side, get time with the Lord. And those are the best days that I have. It's the days that I don't do that, where I'm stressed, I'm overworked, I'm burnt out, I'm tired. I'm like, why am I doing this? But man, on the days where I am all in and saying, God, how can you use me? Those are the days that, man, you hit, your head hits the pillow that night. You're like, man, today was awesome.
That's awesome. It's not like just creating some time to have space and reflect and bring people into your life and like you said, confess. You know, when we do take one step off the path that we want to be going down, then we take a moment, reset, and get back right on moving forward. But Alex, this I have a feeling we need to get you back for round two another time to keep the conversation going. This has been so good. Thanks for taking your time to come and share. But we just like to end with a word of prayer. Is there anything that we can be praying with you or your family about?
Yeah, I would say thanks for asking. I'm going into like the busiest month of my speaking career this next month. So I would say just prayer for just that I would, uh, be open to who God has me to speak with and all the different places I'm going to, whether it's a corporate company or a team or an athletic department or a school, that God would just use those different opportunities for his glory.
That's awesome. Well, let's pray. Lord, we just thank you so much just for this time that we could connect and hear more about Alex's story. And God, you're worthy of all glory and honor and power. And God, we just pray for Alex right now that you would just prepare the steps as he goes on the speaking trip through September, and just that you would connect him with the people that you want him to reach and love and just share the hope that we have that's in you. And I just pray that you will bless his work, his business, his ministry, and bless his family too. Thanks again just for being a loving father. And we give you our days and our lives to you. Praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much, Chad.